Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Sakeina. This daily would normally be a wise words to ponder. However, we are doing something a little different this week. The most recent tarot deck walkthrough that I did was the Supernatural deck. So Sakeina urged me to use that deck to give her the opportunity to give an impression on paranormal stories. So I am using this week a paranormal story for each day, one that is considered true by the people who submitted them to me when I had the website Night Watchman Chronicles, which ran from 2004 to 2017. So I'm going to read you a story, which I also read to Sakeina, and she threw out, through jumpers as always, these 3 cards for this story. So let's see what this is. The story is called The Man with the Lantern and was submitted by C.C. Many an evening, when living in my hometown, I would enjoy walking late afternoon and into twilight. I would walk down through the village and to the harbor, which was world famous for its majestic windjammer fleet. Then I would walk up the length of Mountain Street until I reached the historic Mountain Street Cemetery. There, I always took a shortcut through the cemetery and then over to the part of town in which I lived. You might say, aren't you afraid to walk through a cemetery almost at dark? My answer to that would be no. My mother always told me it is better to fear the living than the dead. This night was no different than any other. The sun had just about set and the mountain looked like it was leaning over the graveyard as it always did at that time of the evening. As I walked down its sloping avenues to the middle of the cemetery, I spotted what seemed to be something moving. Many times I would meet up with another fellow townsperson walking their dog or just out for a walk the same as I. This was different, however. There was an odd aura about this. I paused and watched to see if I might see the figure again. The setting was very quiet. It was in the midsummer and the sound of crickets could still be heard and the dancing of fireflies here and there. I could still barely make out the shapes of the monuments and tomb houses. I had walked through this cemetery so many times, I could do it with my eyes closed. Then I caught it again from the corner of my eye. I was standing at the corner of the back of the Montgomery tomb. Job Montgomery, by the way, was a friend of my grandfather's. As I stood there, I noticed before me, in the twisted shadows of the trees, a figure that seemed to be that of a man moving as if gliding on ice. Sort of like the gracefulness of an ice skater. But mind you, this was in midsummer and there was no ice, just neatly manicured grass. Its shape and form became clearer to me, and it seemed as if he would be a character from a Charles Dickens tale. Dark clothes with a tall stovepipe-looking hat and a jacket with what appeared to be swallowtails. As I slowly crept closer to him and him to me, I noticed he was carrying a lantern. The square type of lantern with a candle inside that I often saw in old photos of Victorian carolers at Yuletide. Interesting he was. It was too shadowy to see a face ever, but he seemed to be looking for something over the ground as he moved back and forth, just like a skater gliding over the ice. I watched as he weaved in and out of the century-old gravestones. I wondered, is anyone else seeing this, or am I the only one? Surely someone from the street must be noticing this odd occurrence. There was no sound other than the sounds of the night which I mentioned before. As he neared the Grinnell tomb house, he vanished. It was as if he stepped through a doorway and was gone. Never again did I see the man with the lantern, and I have passed through that cemetery many a night thereafter. Okay, so there is the story. Let's see what cards Sakeina has given us. We have the 5 of Pentagrams, or 5 of Pentacles. We have the 10 of Bones, or 10 of Wands. And we have the 8 of Cups, or 8 of Goblets, as they call in the Supernatural deck. Okay, so with the 5 of Pentagrams or Pentacles, Sakeina is saying that CC definitely had a disruption of his usual evening routine, and that what he was seeing was something that was actually missing life on Earth. With the Ten of Bones, Sakeina is saying what Cece saw, or who Cece saw, was someone who knew where he belonged. Again, missing Earth, so we can assume that this person is on spirit side, that he was missing where he, or that he knew where he belonged, knew the right path to be on, but it made him feel more complete to sometimes come back to Earth and walk that path. Sakeina says she does not know what it was specifically about that path for this being, but they felt it was the right path for them to be walking. And almost like a patrol. Kind of, she says, it was almost like he was patrolling. And that was a responsibility that he took upon himself, even though there are other jobs that he had on spirit side. And with the Eight of Goblets, or Eight of Cups, Sakeina is saying that doing that made this being, and I'm going to say angel, or spirit, because the person in this card in the supernatural show is an angel. So I'm just going to say, I'll say spirit. So doing this made this spirit quite happy. And it isn't that, he doesn't enjoy the jobs that he does spirit side, but this just gives him a great feeling and gives him the opportunity to spend a little bit of time on Earth. And Sakeina says he is also giving anyone who sees him the opportunity to see that life does continue on even after death. Keeping in mind this took place in a cemetery. So that's what Sakeina has to share for the Man with the Lantern story. Take care.